Chemistry is a new language for many of us when we first learn about it. And just like learning a new language, there are different vocabularies and terminology that we have to be able to learn and be able to recognize and use them correctly. So in this lecture video, I'll be discussing some of the most common terminology that we use to describe chemical substances. And they are element, compound, and molecules. So first, what are elements? An element is basically a substance that is made up of a single type of atom. So that's how easy it is to be able to see an element. By looking at the chemical formula of a substance, how many types of element do we see making up a substance? If we see there's only one single type of atom that make up a substance, despite of how many atoms we have, if it consists of just only one type of atom, that substance will then be classified as an element. An element cannot be further decomposed into all the pure substances because it already exists in its purest form, right? So if we have some elements, some atoms bonded together, and now they're breaking apart, then still they cannot produce any other substances. And the word element can also be used to refer to a type of atom. And for an example, rather than saying 118 types of atom, we can now call it 118 element. And the reason is because an element is made up of a single type of atom. An example of substances that will be classified as element include the following. Oxygen. The reason why oxygen can be described with the word element is because it consists of only oxygen atom, right? In a chemical formula, there are two oxygen bonded together, but because they consist of the same types of atom, therefore oxygen is an element. And now silver is another example of an element as well, because in a sample of silver, we would see only silver atoms that are stacked on top of each other. And because it consists of only one single type of atom, it is then an element. And helium gas is another example of an element because it consists of only helium atom in it. And now moving on to the word compound. What are compounds and how are compounds different than element? Compounds are basically substances that are made up of two or more different, so the word different here is really important, types of element. So make up of two or more different types of element in its chemical formula. So when we take a look at the formula of a substance, if we see it consists of two or more different elements in the formula, then now that substance can be classified as a compound. And because a compound consists of different types of atoms bonded together, therefore it can be further broken into all the pure substances by undergoing a chemical chain. For an example, water is a compound. Why is water a compound? The reason, because when we look at a chemical formula, it consists of hydrogen and oxygen. So these are different types of atoms right here, and thus make water a compound. And another example, table salt, sodium chloride, can also be classified as a compound because in a chemical formula, you can see it consists of sodium and chlorine, which are two different types of atom. And another example, ethyl alcohol, it also can be classified as a compound because in a chemical formula, we can see carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. So these are three different types of element right here that make up the substance. So therefore, it can also be classified as the word compound. And now moving on to the word molecules. Molecules are basically substances that are made up of two or more. They can be similar or different atoms. And the atom in here refer to the non-metal atom that are bonded together. So let's go over this definition again. Substances that are made up of two or more different atoms, and the atom have to be bonded together. And the types of atom that we are referring to in this case right here are non-metal. Okay, and we'll go and define the nonmetal in the next chapter. And molecules can be classified as element or compound. So an element can be a molecule, and a compound can also be further described with a molecule as well. Now, elements and compound are two distinct words. We can only use one or the other. But along with element and compound, we can further describe them with the word molecule as well. Okay? And if we were to have a substance that can be described by the word molecule and the word element, then we can combine these two terminology together and now call this a molecular element. And similarly, if we were to have a substance that can be described by the word molecule, and that substance is a compound, then now we can combine them together to now call it a molecular compound. So molecular compound and molecular element are two very, very common terminologies that we use here in chemistry as well. For an example, oxygen can be described by the word molecule. And the reason why in this case right here, oxygen, it consists of two oxygen. And these two oxygen right here are bonded together. So this line right here connecting the two atoms together, it represents a bond. So in this case, these two atoms right here are bonded together. And this bonding right here is really important, because if this atom right here were to not be bonded together, we would not use the word molecule to describe it. Okay, so it has to be bonded together. So therefore we can use the word molecule to describe this. And in this case, oxygen, as we have seen previously already, is also an element. So therefore combining together, we can now refer to oxygen as a molecular element. And another example, water. We can use the word molecule to describe water. Water consists of two hydrogen and oxygen, and both hydrogen and oxygen are non-metal. And again, we'll describe the word non-metal a little bit later, but for now we can see that the hydrogen and the oxygen are bonded together, and this line right here represents a bond between the two atoms. So if the atoms are bonded together, then it is a molecule. And in this case right here, this is also a compound as well, because it consists of two different types of atoms. So combining together, we can call this a molecular compound. And another example, ethyl alcohol. In this case right here, it can also be described by the word molecule, because again, the atoms are bonded together. And it is a compound. So combining together, we can also call this a molecular compound. Now, table salt, NaCl, is actually not a molecule. It is a compound, but it is not a molecule. And the reason why it is not a molecule is because the sodium and the chlorine are actually not bonded together. So in this case, we do not draw a line that bonded sodium and the chlorine together. Now the sodium and the chlorine are basically bonded together, but they form the ionic bond, and we'll discuss that ionic bond later. But for the most part in here, there's no bonds, there's no typical bond that we are referring to right now that connecting these two atoms together. And because these two atoms are not bonded together by a line, so therefore this is not a molecule. So again, going back to the definition, it's really important that the atoms are bonded together. In this case right here, are by a line, and this line right here represents a covalent bond. And we discuss the word covalent bond later, but the atoms have to bond together through the covalent bond in order for the substance to be classified as a molecule. And here are some of the additional terminology that we also use to describe molecule as well. A molecule can now be further classified as diatomic molecule. And the word diatomic refers to two, right? So di means two. So basically molecule that are made up of two atoms, whether the atoms are the same or different. As long as they consist of two atoms, then now we can call them a diatomic molecule. And next, homoatomic molecule. So the homo here means same. So substances that consist of the same types of atom. And polyatomic molecule, poly means many. So it basically substances that consist of many different types of atom that are bound together. Okay, so many, and they can be same atom or different atom. But the key here is many. And how many is too many? So here in this class right here, anytime that we have 5 atoms or more, then that is considered to be many, and we can call that with the word polyatomic. So in summary, matter can be a pure substance or a mixture, and within mixture, a mixture can be further described with the word homogeneous mixture or a heterogeneous mixture. And pure substances can be an element or a compound. Okay, and in this case right here, this substances right here, for example, if we would have a piece of copper, then this is a pure substance, and it consists, and it could classify as an element because it consists of only one type of atom. We can also refer to this as an atomic element, because the reason is because within the chemical formula of it, it consists of only one atom. In this case, copper, Cu. That's it. So silver can also be called an atomic element, and iron can also be called an atomic element as well. So if in a chemical formula and it consists of only one type of atom, it can be called an atomic element. And helium will be another example of an atomic element as well. Versus this can also be described with the word molecular compound. And the word molecular implies that the atoms are bonded together. So there is a line representing a bond that connected all of these atoms together. Now, let's try some of this example right here to make sure you know how to use this terminology correctly. So first one, H2. So H2, based on the chemical formula, it consists of only one type of atom. So clearly in this case right here, we can use the word element to describe it. And now say it consists of 2 atoms, and these 2 atoms right here are bonded together because the consist of hydrogen is a non-metal. So the 2 hydrogen are bonded together through a bond. So therefore, we now can also describe the word molecule for this as well. Combining this together, we should be able to describe this H2 with the word molecular element. And we can also use the word diatomic element or diatomic molecule. As well, because it consists of 2 atoms bonded together in a chemical formula. And now let's try another example with water. So water, clearly we can describe this with the word compound, right? Because it consists of 2 different atoms bonded together. And we can also use the word molecule to describe water as well. So therefore, combining these 2 words together, we can call this a molecular compound. Okay, so please try the rest of this other example.